Hi, everybody. So this week, we're going to continue with Kaden Pressy's interview. It's the last 10 minutes of his interview, and it's very interesting. We want to make a couple statements about the interview. We hear that Kaden is getting a lot of blowback just because he's coming out and talking he's talking to law enforcement and he's talking to us. And I think that's horrible. All he wants is the best for Noah and his family. And, this is his truth, his experience, what he saw. So he's not making any judgments on anybody. So I think it's
and really, neither are we. I mean, we're not accusing anybody of anything either. We're just putting out the information that we're getting.
Yes.
And I think that there's a lot of heat on this case, social media wise as well. People can be a little mean on social media, and I think that's unfair to do, especially the victim blaming on Noah, which I saw a lot of in the past couple of days, which I'm kind of horrified about. But as far as Kaden is concerned,
I think
it's not right.
No.
He's telling his truth. Leave him alone.
And I think after this past weekend and everything that happened and, in Pennsylvania with the attempted assassination, I think everybody needs to kind of take a breath and take the temperature down. Everyone gets a little too riled up on social media, and just think before you post and understand that there's family and lives that are behind all these things. It's not just a thing for you to kind of banter about online. But if you do have some valuable information, we have been talking to the OHP, and we want to put out their information center. So if you do have information related to this case and you do want to talk to the OHP, you want to reach out to their Southwest Regional Communications Center, and you can contact them on email at swrc@dps.ok.gov. That's swrc@dps.ok.gov. So, and we only have 10 minutes of Kaden's interview, but after that, we reached out to our friend Jody Bar, the retired law enforcement CSI expert and coroner and investigator for over 30 years. And she's been following up on the case. She's been listening to everything. And we talked to her about Kaden's interview. We wanted to get her perspective. She's interviewed hundreds of people in cases like this. And so we wanted to get her bead on what Kaden is saying. So you're going to play Kaden's interview, the last 10 minutes, and then we're going to jump to Jody and we're going to talk to her about it.
And we're open to talking to whoever wants to talk to us. We're not taking sides. We're not being biased. We're trying to objectively report what we're hearing and what we're seeing in this case. And so we welcome anyone who wants to talk and tell their side of the story or what they saw, what their truth is.
So without further ado, here's Kaden Pressy's interview part 2. Okay. All right. And so you were still friends with Jack. At what point did, the friendship kind of dissolve, and, what started happening then? Because it wasn't just Jack that it dissolved with. It seemed from what we heard is that, people started talking to you.
Around whenever Jack did the Banfield interview with Channel 7 News or something.
News Nation.
News Nation. Whenever I seen that interview, it just set something off in my head. I was like I shouldn't be hanging around with him until this gets cleared up. Because it's been almost a year now. If they had something to do with Noah, that could easily happen to me. No one can find out until a year later or stuff like that, So I didn't want nothing to happen to me like that. So.
Oh yeah, we understand that. But I'm curious because the News Nation interview bothers me a lot, and I don't even know Jack. So as someone that knows Jack and was very good friends with him, when you saw that interview, what did you feel? Did you feel something was wrong or something was off about the way he was talking, or what was your reaction to it?
Well, I don't want to talk badly about Jack, but it kind of seemed like he had it scripted in his head. Yeah, right whenever they asked the question, he instantly mouths off, saying, "Oh no, it was a semi that hit him." Um, and all that crap. After that, it messed with me realizing he said that, because if you get hit with any type of vehicle, you're not gonna be looking pretty good.
No,
not at all. When you woke up, when your mom called, was anyone wet? Did it look like anyone had taken a shower, or was the shower going, or did you know about the shower?
No, ma'am. I overheard Noah saying he was going to shower earlier in the day, but I never did witness him or hear him shower.
And was anyone wet or anything when you woke up at 2:43?
No, ma'am. But whenever I left, well, not whenever I left, but whenever I was picking up the beer cans, the concrete on the porch was wet. Like if someone used a garden hose or something.
Okay. I want to ask you a little bit about one of the stories about how some people were talking about prior with the side-by-sides, and that, there's some people said there was a side-by-side accident. I mean, you guys were riding it earlier and you jumped it and everybody was fine, walked away from it. At what point did anybody go out after that later that night with the side-by-sides? Could there have been an accident in the side-by-side that Noah was involved in?
Maybe. I mean, I know that they were driving around and stuff, but I don't think they were doing anything crazy with it. And when I was awake, I didn't hear of a side-by-side accident or anything like that. So I think if that accident did happen, it was after I fell asleep.
So, Kaden, what happened to your knee?
All right. So, shoot, I'd say it was close to July. We were going out on the boat, and I'm a bigger guy, and it's hard to throw me off a tube. So I'd always hang on. I'd never fall off. And my dad gets the bright idea to slingshot the hell out of me. And there was another boat passing us, and I ended up hitting their wake, bouncing up in the air. And then I was still holding onto the tube the whole time. And I bounced in the air again, and I landed, and I'm still sliding into the water. And the tube starts to lean over. I mean, and I've always put it back on its side, and I just decided to let go. And it wasn't a very good idea because, I mean, I was moving good 30 miles per hour in that water, and I hyperextended the crap out of my leg. And that was it for me. No more tubing after that. And went and got x-rays and stuff like that. And they didn't see nothing wrong. And until a year, no, it's been a year now since I've had the surgery.
And you had to have your ACL replaced, correct?
Yeah, my ACL and my meniscus.
So when you were at the party, you were not moving that fast.
No, I was slow walking. I was grandpa walking.
So we saw Avery's mom had put out some things about you being in a Snapchat pushing an ATV or something like this. Can you, what's that all about?
So Avery and Carter's mom, they're basically saying that, because I went online saying that I didn't know nothing about this ABT or side by side wreck, and they were calling me liars, saying that I was in the side by side at the time when it wrecked, and I also helped flip it over, and that there was a video of me doing so, and they just were not allowed to share it because their lawyers didn't want it going out. And that was the end of the story. I've messaged her, I've DM'd her, I've commented on her post saying, ma'am, could you please send me this video, because I do not remember this. And she would always just ignore me.
So
you can say without a doubt that you did not tip over an ATV.
No, No, I wouldn't have even been able to. My leg would have collapsed on me. I had to get surgery again.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So now you're at that point. Now you've heard Jack's interview. You're upset with him. You decide to kind of just take a break from him, stay away from him. And then what has been transpiring? You've kind of been in a whirlwind right now. You talked to the cops. It took like a month for you to actually talk to OHP. And then they didn't take your phone, but you gave them all the information on your phone. So recently you reached out to them again. Can you kind of talk us through that?
All right. So I talked to two OHP, OSBI officers. I don't know what they are. At there's the OSBI or OSBI office in Duncan, and I had a scheduled interrogation with this OSBI officer.
Trooper Anthony and Trooper Ross.
Their names were Trooper Anthony and Trooper Ross.
Yeah, those are OHP.
Yes.
And so I had a conversation with them, and in the state of Oklahoma, it is a one party consent to record. So like I could be recording this conversation and not even let you know because I've given my own consent to record it. And that's how it was at the time. Right whenever I arrived into the building, I started recording, and they don't know I was recording. And I mean, obviously they were recording with like their little tiny phones, whatever they are. And basically they were just asking me all these questions and everything, just like all the other times.
Yeah. So just in order, and you did that because you wanted to protect yourself. You wanted to make sure what you told them was what was memorialized in your own recording. So your words couldn't get misconstrued, correct?
Yeah. And I also offered them my phone, and they didn't want it.
Okay, everybody. We have Jody Bar back on. If you remember, Jody helped us out dissecting the ME report, the medical examiner's report, a few weeks ago, and got a lot of great positive feedback on her analysis. Once again, Jody is a career law enforcement. She's retired now, former CSI, former coroner, former investigator for the Illinois state police there. So we wanted to have Jody on because, you know, she's been listening to what's going on. She's been following what's going on. And she also heard Kaden's interview last week. And she heard this week's, the remainder of it, 10 minutes that we played, and she listened to as well. So we wanted to get her feedback just on a basic law enforcement perspective. She's interviewed hundreds of people and hundreds of death cases, both, you know, foul play, non-foul play. So she has a pretty good read on when someone is not telling the truth or not being truthful. So Jody, what did you think of Kaden Pressy's interview with us? And you know, we feel that he's telling the truth. We've spoken to him numerous times. We've heard recordings of him talking to police officers. His story has not deviated from everything that he's told us. So just curious from your perspective, what did you think?
Well, I like his style. I think he's being truthful. What I particularly like about him is he answers thoughtfully, but he doesn't take a lot of time, and he'll tell you right up front if he's having problems with remembering certain things. He's very straightforward on everything, and I believe he's being very honest about everything. He's got times, he's got people, he's got a very good memory, and he admits that it's been almost a year. So, you know, things get fuzzy after a while, but I think he's very credible. I think he's telling the truth. I just don't think he's being deceitful at all. If he makes a mistake, you know, that's that's understandable after the time. And he's open to that, I think,
Yeah.
If there's,
And
go ahead.
I was going to say that, as far as timeline's concerned, I mean, from what we have gleaned from everybody has been speaking about, and, and from the 911 calls that are just released, it seems like his timelines are pretty accurate. And I think, we've spoken to him and his family, and I know they're getting his phone analyzed, and they sent it out to an independent source through their attorney. And so they're going to have definitive proof of his timeline based upon his phone data. Because, the first thing he said when Jack blew through that door is he grabbed his phone and he looked at his phone. And it's like, that's like pretty.
And the phone can follow him. So that's the thing. I mean, with the GeoNet, they'll be able to tell his location. So according to his timeline, Jack came in at 5:15, and then they went straight down there. So there would be a record of that on his phone, correct, Jody?
There should be, yes. Yes. And there should be a record on other people's phones as well.
Right. Which we thought was interesting because law enforcement didn't take his phone. He offered it, but they didn't take it.
The only thing I don't know why they wouldn't have at the time, but maybe they just thought he was cooperating and they could get it if they needed it. I'm guessing. I have no idea why they wouldn't take. Why they wouldn't take something that was offered to them.
Yeah. What was bizarre is that the first time he was questioned, because they were still, I think, like a week and a half or early in a month after, I can't remember exactly the time when he was, he was questioned by the OHB, which he actually called them. And then he gave them all the information on his phone. He says, you can have my phone if you need it. And they didn't take it. I think at that point, they were still kind of really exploring the idea that it could have been an accident, a hit and run. So that's probably why they didn't take it. But later on, like literally a couple weeks ago, he called them again and said, do you guys want to interview me? Because he was getting a lot of feedback on social media that, what he was saying was inaccurate. And to be perfectly honest, the amount of backlash this young man has taken on social media, because he's the only one coming out and telling the truth, or at least offering his side of the story on what happened or what he saw.
Right. This is what he saw. And a lot of people are just bashing it. What's really disturbing is that there's a lot of adults bashing him. I mean, we have to remember, these are kids.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, we know that adults were involved in this right from the beginning. They've inserted themselves right from the beginning as far as the cleanup and things like that. So there's a lot at stake here I think, from a lot of people, because there are distinctively conflicting statements about the body and the clothes. And that's huge. Yeah. And there's a distinctive timeline that should be verifiable for the most part, especially with his phone.
Yeah. Well, I want to get back to, before I got off a train of thought there, but one of the other things he offered them after he went and spoke to the OHB in person. First he called them, and then he went and spoke to them there. And then they were like, oh yeah, you can come in if you wanted to. And then when someone offers to come in when they're related to a death case, I would think that they'd want to hear from him. And so he went in there and he spoke to them. And at the end of that conversation, he offered again his phone, and they said, no, we don't need to have your phone. So to me, it just seems, unless they've already created they already have enough information right now to kind of decide what they think it is. That would be the only reason why they would not take his information. What do you think?
Well, to me, I mean that could possibly be the case. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know I really don't know who they've talked to, other than I know they've talked to Kaden, and I know that Jack has given some statements and some interviews, but I don't know what much of what he said in the beginning. But to me, I would love to have a piece of evidence that could corroborate a story. And if that phone corroborates his version of a timeline, that could be huge, because that puts multiple people at that scene way before the officials get involved.
It's about 45 minutes.
Important. Right. And what's even more so is there's clearly a difference of in stories about how Noah looked, what he was wearing, how he was positioned. Those kind of things are distinctively different. And if you have a piece of physical evidence that can be used as corroboration, it can be used in an affidavit, it can be used for search warrants, it can be used for all sorts of things. I would jump at that. So yeah. I don't know what they're thinking. I mean, maybe they have a good reason why they don't think they need it, or they really don't want it. But to me, that would be a very viable piece of physical evidence that could corroborate a timeline.
Yeah.
Which then, when you have that, now you know who sits on what side of that timeline.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, that's the biggest problem, is that, there is no definitive timeline. And right now, based upon everything that we've heard, the only timeline that makes sense and will be able to be proved soon, once he gets his phone data back, is Kaden's, because he's the only one offering a kind of definitive. And the only other timeline we know about is when the 911 calls were made, and they weren't made right away.
Right. They were made right before 6 o'clock, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But we know, well, his phone should corroborate that his mother called him at 2:42 or 2:43 about the cousin. And I think that's, unless he made a mistake when he looked at it, I don't think he would make that up, about his cousin and all of that stuff. It flows very, very well.
Yeah.
So you know that. You then know that the next time is the post by Jasmine at 3:41 saying Noah is missing. So you have that post. And then you connect that to, again, going back to Kaden's phone at 5:15. Well, that won't be on the phone, but he's saying he looked at it.
Exactly.
What will be on the phone is the geo-tracking.
Right. So they went down there. He said 5 minutes later. So like at 5:20, you would know, yeah. 5:25, the latest, you would know that he's on the move.
Right.
And where is he located? If he's located at the scene, it'd be on his phone.
Right. And you also have, I mean, there's other people involved. You have Tyler, what's his name?
There's two Tylers.
We don't know the last name of the one, but Tyler Harding.
Tyler Harding, I believe, is the first one that called and said that it looks like it was a hit and run or a deer or whatever. And then the second one is another Tyler. And then he said that he was standing back as it was a body.
I thought Tyler Hardy was the one who stayed there at the body.
Yeah. Apparently there was there was at least 2 or 3 people in there. And then Jack's father was called.
Right.
I think his name is Caleb.
Yes.
Caleb. Right.
And there were local volunteer fire department. I don't know if it was 1 or 2. Exactly. And then, there was a People magazine article that came out online, and they interviewed the Jefferson County sheriff and the undersheriff. And, and one of the quotes is here: "What Wilson saw that morning was this." He says Noah was naked and on his back with a couple of teeth laying next to his body. So he says there was blood in the scene, but not as much as there would have been. Let me put it that way, Wilson says. Even if you were hit by a passenger car by highway speeds that night, there should have been a lot more blood.
Right.
Yeah.
And the shorts that were that were there on site, he was naked, but the shorts that they picked up were not black shorts. They were white printed shorts, whatever that means, and this is very important, with no signs of any damage to them. Now, from his body injuries, white shorts would have been a mess.
Yeah. The shorts
those things are huge.
The shorts make no sense. And Kaden said when he came down there with the other two boys, and I think it was Isaac and Mikey.
Yes. And one other person.
Braylon Sweat. Yeah. So those three and Kaden went down there, and Noah had black shorts on.
Right.
What happened to the black shorts? And then later, Jack gave Dalen black shorts.
And then the OHP officer, who we know, I mean, he said that he didn't have any shorts on. He was naked.
Right. And that's what the ME said.
And that's what the 911 caller said.
Right. So in between 5:15 and before 6 o'clock, we know Noah didn't take his shorts off.
Yeah.
Right. So somebody took his shorts. Why would somebody take his shorts?
And Kaden didn't, because he was told to leave.
Right.
Before the call, he was there literally probably like maybe
5 minutes,
10 minutes, maybe tops.
And they were told, the three of them were told to leave.
Right.
And Jack stayed.
Four of them.
Four of them, yeah. And Jack stayed.
There were five there, including Jack.
Sorry, yes. So the four of them were told to leave, and Jack stayed.
Right. And then the next ones that come is Renee, and I don't know if her husband was with her. I can't remember that, but Jasmine's mom and dad. For sure.
Yes. Yeah. At least
that was like 6:30. And they said they had been there for about a half hour. So they got there around 6 too.
Mm-hmm.
So it just doesn't make sense. I mean, there's a huge break there and a huge difference. And if you can corroborate through physical evidence Kaden's story and timeline, that puts a whole different spin on what the others have said.
Yeah.
I don't know what the three boys, I don't know what Braylon, do you know what they've said? Braylon
we have
Isaac.
Information that, people have told us. We haven't spoken to them ourselves. We would love to talk to them. And if you're listening, guys, you have the same platform as Kaden does. And, but I know other people have close, either family members or people that are looking into this. I believe, the private investigator, Kathy, who we're going to have on next week, she's spoken to all the kids.
Oh, good.
She's spoken to everybody, and she's recorded their conversations and she's documented it. So, I mean, I can't remember what she said about that, but we'll get into that next week. But she's got a good line on, and she did that early on. So she has fresh information because she knows that area. She lives in that area. She knows all these kids. So she just went in and dove right in, and thank God she did. And, but yeah, we don't know exactly what just a little bit of a highlight. She did say some were more deceptive than others. And, based upon just the way they tell the story and their reaction to what happened, something like that trauma. I mean, that extreme trauma for these young people to kind of experience. And she kind of based some of her opinion based upon how they reacted to her questions and how they were telling their story. But she also said Kaden his story seemed rock solid. Yeah. So that's another person who questioned him.
Right. Well, and the shoes in the ME's report, they noted about the shoes as well. The shoes were mismatched. We know that one of them belonged to Kaden. But they both one had more than the other, but they both had grass and dirt inside them. Now, remember, they were still on his feet.
Yeah.
Which is very strange. Like I said, in an accident, usually you get knocked out of your shoes almost immediately. Even if you're inside of a car, you'll get knocked out of your shoes. I don't know the dynamics of it, but I've seen it 1,000 times.
Well, yeah, any kind of force can knock you out of your shoes no matter how tight they are.
Right. And so, but the shoes had dirt and grass inside them. He's on the road. As far as I know, there's no evidence that he was hit anyplace else. He's on the road. There's just so much that doesn't make sense about all of that.
Well, let's go back to the shorts. White shorts. Okay, if his shoes had grass and dirt in it, his shorts would have had something on them. They wouldn't have been clean.
Right. Oh, and the shoes showed no sign of damage. That's the other thing. The shoes showed no sign of damage. I guarantee you, if he would have somehow managed to keep his shoes on, being struck by a vehicle like that, he had to have been drugged at some point. He didn't have a lot of road rash, but he had those little tiny, little bruising and abrasions all over his body. Yeah. And so his shoes would have been scraped up. They would have been damaged. They should have been bloodied, or they should have been damaged and scraped, and they weren't.
One of the other theories that has been touted that we've been seeing popping up is that he could have been riding in a truck and fell out the back of a truck, and that could have happened. But I still don't understand how his shorts come off.
But if that's what happened and it was an accident, why wouldn't they just say?
Right. Why wouldn't they just say, and why take those black shorts and leave a pair of white ones unless
it makes
they
no
were
sense.
underneath? It makes no sense.
Well, I just think there was a lot of people, like I said before. I mean, Tyler Harding, is that his name, or Hardy? Or
Hardy.
I mean, if he was one of the first people to arrive, and why do you wait like close to 45 minutes before you call 911?
Right. Well, according to that article, he was there when Jack pulled up.
Yeah.
And Jack said he stumbled on the accident.
Right. But I mean, wasn't Tyler there?
I'm sorry.
When he called 911, wasn't Tyler there? So
yeah.
No, but it was called almost just before 6 o'clock.
Right.
Jack came in and basically alerted everybody at the house at 5:15 that Noah was dead. So, and he was probably there. I don't know when he saw it. That's the thing about the timeline that gets kind of murky, is like, when did Jack see it? So that's why it's super important, like you said, to confirm Kaden's timeline and verify that. And hopefully we'll have that information soon. And then that can be the baseline for, what Jack says and what everybody else says. Because otherwise it just seems like they waited almost 40 minutes before calling 911. Why, I mean, I know it's out there in a rural area and it takes but why would you be standing around a body and not call 911 right away? You see, if you roll up on something, you see a dead body, the first thing you do is call 911.
Right.
You're not waiting and deliberating over it.
Right. When Kaden is there and the other boys, presumably, at 5:25, Caleb isn't there. But when the sheriff's there at around 6 o'clock, Jack and Caleb are both there.
Yep.
So there's and in between that time, he goes from being dressed in black shorts and mismatched shoes to having just the shoes on with a pair of white shorts that are pristine, folded. Basically.
That are folded next to him.
Right. I mean, that just isn't a natural occurrence or event.
Yeah.
There's something desperately wrong. And that's why that phone, if it can corroborate, if it can confirm Caleb's timeline, that's huge in my book to the investigation.
Yeah.
I mean, for them to do GeoNet on all the phones, like all the boys and the girls that were there, how long would that process normally take?
I have no idea. I don't know what the capabilities are for something like that in Oklahoma. I mean, they should probably be able to do that at their state crime lab, but I don't know that for a fact. But I don't think it's a particularly difficult process to do if they have the technology to do it.
Yeah, I would imagine the hardest part is collecting all of the phones would probably be the hard, and finding out,
Right.
It just,
I mean, it shouldn't take this long. It's been almost a year.
No, I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, I'm sure they have the data, and I think they do, and I can double check with the OHB to see if they've already gotten results for that. And I'm just curious to see how they're working the case now, because this case has gotten a lot of attention. It's an international case now. It's not even like just, national. It's international. I mean, it's caught the imagination of a lot of people because, and I think the reason that's the case is because things just don't add up.
No.
Things don't add up, and that, Kaden is probably one of the only ones that have, I mean, I'm sure there's other kids that were at the party who have spoken to police, and we don't know what their statements are. We just know that, the level of social media posts on this case is through the roof, and people are, just people discussing it on our page, on all these other Facebook pages that are dedicated to NOAA. It's just, it's through the roof, and it's hard to see the forest through the trees because you have everybody interjecting their own opinion on what they think is going on. And I'm sure that's not making it easy for law enforcement, but they're used to blocking out the noise. But at the same point, do they even kind of consider some of these theories that are being thrown out? Because we also get reached out by people that are in the area that know a lot of the people. We've had a lot of conversations with people who've reached out to us who are connected in that area. I won't say how they're connected, but they're offering up a lot of information, and we can go down the rabbit hole all day long, but we have to we're vetting all this information out, and it's like I said, it didn't look good for the family to lawyer up so quickly unless they really thought they were worried about the social hosting part, which, obviously it's something, if someone was at your party, and they left and they were drunk and they were, underage and they showed up dead, that would be something to worry about. I would lawyer up too, to make sure to protect my family and my house and my land. So that makes sense. But if that's the case, why don't you say that? And if they did say that, I didn't see it. It just seems like they just go on. Everybody goes on the attack on either side, and it just and I know it's really difficult because they're living it, but it's not helping the case.
Well, there's also been victim shaming, saying that Noah was drinking and he took a bottle of whiskey, and it's like, you know what? I'm sorry, that's ridiculous. Okay, victim shaming drives me crazy. The person is not alive.
We know he was drinking. So
everybody was drinking.
Everybody was drinking.
I mean, it makes no sense. It's like you're gonna blame the victim for this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's wrong, and it's not fair to the family, and it's not fair to his friends and the people that love him. I mean, that's mean.
Yeah.
So, and also with Kaden, he's been very brave to come out. I mean, getting bullied is not fun, and he's a young guy. He's only 19 years old. He's lost, most of his friends for coming out and saying, what he saw and what he knows to be true. And I think it's really unfair that people are attacking him. Yeah. And then, we're not saying who did it or who didn't do it. We're just putting out information, and we believe Kaden's story. It hasn't changed. He's telling the truth.
Right. I think he's credible. I really do. And they don't need physical phones to do that. We did, look at the phone data we had on the Molly and Colt case. We didn't have those phones.
Yeah.
So they don't need those physical phones to do those kind of things. So,
and that would be interesting, and to see if they have all that information too. Like you went through, is just the back and forth, who called who, the level of phone traffic. Because as we know, when you dove into Molly and Colt, that level of phone track, it skyrocketed right after that disappearance and that car chase.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, those kind of things can break something wide open.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
And because you can see where they are and who they're calling. And
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, I'd be relying pretty heavily on that. And, I can understand the lawyering up part. I really can with today's.
Yeah.
It's pretty litigious.
Oh, yeah.
I can understand that, but the shaming part of it, the coming after somebody for telling their side of the story one way or the other, I tend to believe Kaden.
Yeah.
They don't have to believe him. The police don't have to believe him. But if his story can be corroborated somehow, some way, and the phone might do it, then that is a possible break in the case, because that automatically then somebody's not telling the truth.
Yeah.
Right.
So why? And
Yeah,
I
why?
still, those shorts, just why take somebody's shorts? There's only one reason to take shorts off of a body, and that's because you think there's some evidence on it. That
Yeah,
you don't
and
want.
if we're wrong on the timeline, and we'll find out if we are, I mean, we just we actually reached out to Tyler right after his name kind of broke online in a news article, which he didn't even contribute to. They just kind of threw it out there, and he was on his way to a vacation, so we haven't reconnected with him again yet. But if I'd love to hear exactly when he showed up, what he saw, and when he called, the actual time he called 911. And because we didn't, there's no timestamp on the 911 calls, which I thought was interesting.
Very weird.
Isn't that weird?
Well, they just might not have released it.
I'm
We haven't
hoping-
heard the raw. We've
Yeah.
only heard it.
Well, no, I think I can't remember if Robin or Dalen or the Noah's family, if they heard it, and because
I know
was released. It was the other thing too was interesting is they released it to Fox News, but they didn't. The family asked for it, and they didn't release it to them, but they released it to Fox News. So, which I found was kind of interesting.
And then they did give it to the family.
And then they eventually gave it to the family, but it was after.
But did they give it with the time?
I don't.
They don't have timestamps either.
Well, that's strange. I mean, that's. I mean, everything is time stamped in law enforcement.
I know.
Every transmission is time stamped.
I know, and it's normally like baked. It's baked into the recording,
right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's just
it's a little strange.
And I've never heard a call, especially.
Right, I've never heard a 911 call without the time.
No.
And even in Molly and Colt's case, it says the time.
Right.
Yeah, it's the county over, and their department is pretty tiny. I mean, Love County Sheriff's Department is like tiny.
I mean, even if it's tiny, they probably keep, even if they don't have a fully automated system. I don't know what their system is, but even if they have a dispatcher, they keep they usually always keep a log, log,
And maybe that's how they do it. And maybe that's how they do it.
Every transmission.
Maybe
because it's so small, that's what they do. They write it in a log, but.
Yeah, and we're still digging into that, and we'll find out if that. But that's also, I mean, but based upon everything, the reports, news reports, and the People magazine, I'm pretty sure they said it was right before 6 o'clock that the 911 calls came in.
Right, I think it was like 6:54 or 3 or something like that. Yeah, it was. So
close. You mean 5:54?
5:54, yeah.
5:54, yeah, 5:54 or 5:53, something like that.
So that to me is just kind of weird. The weird that they get alerted at the house at 5:15 by Jack that Noah's dead,
right?
And then the 911 calls don't happen till like almost 40 minutes later,
right? It's crazy. Plus, not only is his physical description different as far as what he was wearing when Caleb saw him, as opposed to when the police got there. When
you mean Tyler, when Kaden saw him? Kaden, not Caleb. Say that part again.
I'm sorry. Yeah, when Kaden saw him, as opposed to when Tyler saw him, and the police saw him, the position of the body was slightly different as well. So that could be because when they took the shorts off, they moved the body.
How hard would it have been to take shorts off of him and with all those injuries?
I mean, he's dead.
Actually, so. I mean, it probably wouldn't have been all that hard. It would have been.
I don't think it'd be hard at all. Yeah.
I mean, his lower extremities were not damaged too much. There were no fractures. something like that. It was his back, it was his upper body,
Mhm.
his
Yeah.
spine, his upper body,
His
where
head
all
is, his torso.
But I don't understand what him being naked was about. I just don't understand why they did that.
well, that's huge. I mean, to me, that's huge. You've got somebody saying, I saw him at around 5:30 in the morning and he was dead. He was positioned like this, and he had the black shorts that he was wearing at the party. You've got video of him on with the black shorts on at the party.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one story, but everybody else who came after that, he's naked.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't take him off by himself. So either Kaden's not telling the truth, which I don't think is the case, or somebody removed those shorts for some reason. And I have no idea about the white shorts. That doesn't even.
Yeah.
The ME's report said they were said to be Noah's, but I don't know if that was ever confirmed.
Yeah.
No, he had tan shorts on apparently the day before, but no one that we've spoken to saw him in white shorts.
Yeah. And then the other thing that was interesting is the coroner, and I think we talked about this. The first coroner showed up and was only there for a period of time and then had to leave because there was another situation. Because apparently, and this is what I was told, and in the state of Oklahoma, there's like only 2 coroners in the state of Oklahoma.
In the whole state?
I don't know. That's what but they had to wait a while for the second coroner to come. So, Noah's body was basically there from when he died early in the morning and till like almost dinner time.
Yeah, that was a long time. I mean,
Yeah,
like I said, I've had bodies that have been on scene for long, for hours.
Yeah.
But that's an extremely long time for one person.
Yeah.
I'm talking about larger scenes where you've just got a massive casualty. Yeah.
Yep.
But no, that seems like a long time. But
yeah,
again,
because you don't have any accidents. You just have a body there that was just like dropped there. So you don't have a car, you don't have a truck, no one's, everyone, they initially said it was a hit and run, and then everybody rolled up on it. Even in the People magazine article that just was released, even the sheriff said there was no evidence of a hit and run. It just didn't look right. And he says it didn't look right.
Right. And you know what, sometimes that's the best you can get is, my gut's telling me it's not right. It doesn't look right.
Yeah.
Usually you can articulate why. And I suspect part of it was because there was not enough blood at the scene to reflect the injuries that they saw.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a big one.
Yeah.
It's very strange to me.
Well, hopefully we can get information from the other, because he was, Kaden went there with those 3 other guys.
Right.
Isaac, Mikey, and Braylon. And, Jack was already at the scene. Right. Yeah. So,
well, and the other thing that's interesting to me that Kaden is very sure about was when he went to bed or when he went to sleep on the couch, he knew who was around him and where they were.
Because he was sober.
Right. But when he was awakened at 5:15, Isaac and Braylon had switched positions. Well, what happened in between that time? Well, one thing that happened in between that time is there's a 341 post that Noah went missing. So obviously those 2 guys had gotten up during the night for something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of information here. It's just a matter of being.
And what was interesting about that post by that girl, I can't remember her name.
Jasmine.
Is that her shirt was wet as well.
Yeah, I didn't notice that. I noticed she was smiling, like
she was smiling, and her shirt, you could tell her shirt was wet. So I don't know, and because the only reason I'd say that is because they've been throwing around this story about Noah taking a shower and someone washing him off from dirt and all that kind of stuff. And
My thing is this. All these girls were documenting everything on social media all weekend long with Noah. Good looking kid. All the girls loved him. It was obvious. They were all like writing on him and all the stuff. If they gave him a shower, why didn't anybody document it?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Well, are you kidding? Like if they documented them writing on his butt.
Oh, that stick figure or whatever it was.
Yeah,
I mean,
they were
drawing on him with a magic
taking
marker.
photos and video of him doing all these things. I just don't believe that they would have not taped, filmed, or at least took pictures of him, of the girls giving him a shower.
Right.
I mean, that doesn't make sense.
No.
You're documenting everything that's happened. Why not that part? Because that would have been like, ooh, look, we gave Noah a shower. Right. We drew all over him.
Right. Well, and the other thing that was interesting in the ME's report was that, the ME gives a scenario of what they were told, led up to all of this. And one of the statements in there is that he was said to have had a fight with his girlfriend after the side-by-side accident, that he went back and that he had a fight with his girlfriend. And I thought, well, which one of those was his girlfriend? Because
none of them. His girlfriend wasn't there.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think he was trying to.
They said he had an argument with Avery Joe because he wanted to go stay in her room, but there wasn't really anyone else that corroborated that. And then the other question I had was that if one of the stories was that they fed him and gave him a shower, would the ME have commented on the contents of his stomach?
He did.
Was there anything in it?
There was, but it wasn't. It was digested, I think. There wasn't anything identifiable in it.
If he had eaten a lot
or eaten something,
I mean, like ate a meal at like 3:00 in the morning or 3:30.
Oh, there would be identifiable food at that point.
Yeah, because that means he would have been dead like an hour later.
How long would it take to digest a meal? It takes like 4 hours.
At least. Yeah,
right.
To be full. Yeah.
So if he had eaten
a couple hours, there would probably be, if it was food,
right.
There would be something that they could say, this is what this is.
He didn't eat a meal then, because it would have shown up.
Well, let me just, or I can check it later, but I know it's
check it. Check it out.
Check it out.
Yeah, we have a
Let me check it out now.
Yeah, check it out now.
Let me just see.
This is a big question.
I remember seeing the stomach contents.
Everyone keeps asking.
Torso, extremities, weight. Okay.
Yeah, as far as the whole ATV or the side-by-side ATV thing, I mean, Kaden was asleep for like 45 minutes. He doesn't remember anything or seeing. He knew that they were driving stuff around, but he doesn't remember an accident of any kind.
Yeah. Here's the statement. The esophagus, stomach, small bowel, appendix, and colon were unremarkable. The remainder of the stomach content was approximately 40 milliliter of mucoid tan fluid.
Beer.
Something to that effect.
Yeah.
Recent food would show up.
Yeah. So it was probably beer.
Yeah.
So much for that. They didn't feed him.
Not anytime close to when he died.
Yeah.
So then that's not true then. So that was a big story that was going around, that they fed him, they gave him a shower, it was a whole big thing, and then I guess
I remember Kaden remarking about the concrete being wet outside when he was collecting up the beer.
Well, that was the thing. That's what made me allude to the fact that Jasmine's shirt was wet at the time that she posted that Noah was missing at 3:41.
Yeah. Well, I guarantee you they couldn't have given him a shower or cleaned him up after those injuries were incurred. They wouldn't be able to even
hold him up.
I mean,
so awful.
You know, it's just, but I don't like the fact that there's grass and dirt inside his shoes. He looks to me like he was drug at some point on some pretty rough terrain, I'm guessing, but he doesn't have a lot of road rash, like he, you know, slid across the asphalt too much.
Yeah, even the sheriff commented the same thing in the People magazine, said that he didn't see that as well.
Right.
So, and he said there would be.
Yeah,
definitely.
Of course.
Definitely.
But that's the thing. So, like if it was an accident, why not just say that? Why hide this?
Yeah, I know. It just doesn't make sense. There's a lot of that's why I'm saying if there's some way to corroborate, even if it's Kaden's story, if anybody's story can be corroborated with physical evidence, with forensic evidence that you could take into a court of law, or you could take in to get a search warrant or whatever you needed. I mean, that would split this wide open, because you have such large contradictions on both sides here.
Yeah.
It can't be both. And it can't be natural. Noah could not have taken those shorts off himself. And even if he did, what did he do with them? They weren't there.
Well, Jack gave them to Dalen later.
Which is, I did not know that before. How did Jack get them?
Don't know.
Unless he's saying they were from the night didn't his dad give away pieces of his shirt, of Noah's shirt, the next day?
Yeah, he had. Yeah, I mean, he went there with a shirt on. I mean,
we don't know.
They never got anything back from Noah's. They got the shorts. There was a set of golf clubs that was there. That never came up, you know. And you heard what he said that he saw in the dumpster at. So I mean, not that was Noah's clubs, but he described it exactly how Dalen described to us what the clubs look like. They were mismatched.
They should be
clubs.
Collected. They should have been collected and examined forensically.
They're gone.
Blood, hair, tissue.
They're gone. But the way Dalen described those clubs, he goes, "Yeah, I got him." He was saying, he goes, "I was getting him into golf," because he said he wanted to get into golf. And so I'm into golf. So I got him a set of, you know, they weren't expensive. There's like mismatched clubs that he got somewhere. And those are the exact words that Kaden, and he knows nothing about golf. And those are the exact words. He goes, "Yeah, they were just a bunch of mismatched clubs. And then one of them was bent."
Yeah, like the driver. I think he described
it was like an iron or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, these are all these kind of little words and descriptions that kind of, and that was it. Then no clubs. The only thing they got back was the shorts, and he had a shirt. He had his hat, and we've heard about what happened to his hat.
Right, which is
exactly, which weird. I don't even know if we talked about that yet. We haven't even talked about that yet. And we're going to get into that, I think, with Kathy when we have her on. Because I think she's weird. It's weird
That's
too.
Very strange.
We would love to talk to Jack, because he was his best friend. You know, we're not saying that he did anything, but there's things that are concerning. I wouldn't want all these different things flying around about me if that was my best friend. That's all I'm saying. And, no one's accusing him, but there are a lot of questions. Like, what's the deal?
And like I said, it's not just they're significant contradictions. Significant. So that if you can confirm one.
Then, you can
then you've got issues with everybody who's on the other side.
Yeah, you got a baseline.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be some kind of.
And.
But we do believe Kaden. He has no reason to lie. And because he came out and told his story, he's just getting bullied and attacked.
Yeah.
And that's not right either.
No.
I get all these true crime people, and, we've been producing television for many years. This is a phenomena that's different. This is a live investigation that's being played out on social media in real time. It's actually unique in that sense. I don't think we've seen a case like this except for when we did Up and Vanished.
Molly.
But Tara Grinstead too. But I mean, it's pretty volatile. And people can be really mean on social media, and they've said a lot of mean things. There's been a lot of support for Kaden. I would say 99% of it has been support for Kaden for being, strong enough to tell a story. But there has been people that have said some really horrible things, not only about Kaden, but Noah.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't understand that at all. I mean, that's not right.
No, it's not right. And I'm telling you, I've seen it happen more times than not. When believe it or not, when people do stuff like that, when they say things like that, karma tends to come around quicker than you think.
Yeah.
And I've seen it. I mean,
yeah,
there's
I believe that too.
reason for it.
No.
And,
I mean,
it's a small town.
And it's a small town, and it's getting like the Hatfields and McCoys there. You got the two different families, and it's foolish because everybody. I mean, Noah was the ultimate victim, but this is something everybody's going to have to live with for the rest of their lives. Right. This incident, and
these kids are traumatized. Yeah. I mean, Kaden, he had to get counseling. This is. Who wants to wake up from a dead sleep after, hanging out with your friends and find out one of them's dead and nobody knows what happened to him? I mean, that's really scary.
Yeah.
And then when you're trying to help, you start getting attacked.
There's no reason for him to lie.
No, there's no reason for him to lie. In fact, there's, I mean, like I said, Noah was wearing one of his shoes. I mean, he's right smack in the middle of this, whether he wants to be or not.
Exactly.
And he's never tried to bury that. He's never tried to explain it. He doesn't know how it happened or when it happened.
Well, they were even telling him that he pushed over the ATV when he's recovering from an ACL meniscus.
There's no way.
I mean, he's a big kid. He's 6'3", 260. But, he said, I was walking around like an old man. He goes, if I put any leverage on my leg, my leg would have collapsed. So they're even lying about that, Right.
Yeah. So it's sad. These cases are brutal. They're so sad.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, listen, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Jody. It's so good to see you.
Oh, it's good to see you too. Thank you.
Yeah. Just we'll keep feeding you some information. Keep up on the date. We definitely always like to hear your opinion and pick that police.
I hope they can come to a resolution quickly on this one.
Yeah. Well, I think after almost 10 months now, and they haven't. I don't know if they've done any warrants. We know they haven't arrested anybody. They haven't searched the property, and I do believe there might be a little bit of Native American land type thing that is preventing them from possibly getting onto that land. I've read a little bit about that, which would obviously, it's sovereign land. So, regular law enforcement can't just jump on there, even with a warrant. So they have to go through the other proper channels. We're dealing with that on the Molly case too.
Right.
But, ideally, if it was my land, I would like, hey, come check it out.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. I mean, a child is dead. I mean, let's not forget this. He was just a child. He's only 19. It's not even, wasn't even legal. I mean, that's the thing. It's like everybody's forgetting that these were just a bunch of kids partying all weekend.
Right. Like, and who hasn't been there?
Right.
Who hasn't done that?
Anyone's kid. Anyone's kid could have ended up dead like that. So what in the hell happened? You'd want to know as a parent.
Right.
You'd want to know. Make sure your kids are safe. Yeah, it's okay to party and do all the stuff. We all did it. Come on. Right. But no one died. Right. That's what people are forgetting. There's all this nonsense back and forth. Yeah. Someone died, and that family deserves to know what happened to him.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
all right, Jody. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll check in with you later.
Okay.
Okay. Have a good one.
Wait, hold on.